Welcome to On The Sidelines. John Luck, Brad McKinnon, and we actually have company this week.
Yes, sir.
One of our interns here for BTV, Jonathan Rodriguez, kind enough to sit in the spot that used to be held by Dom, but no suit jacket, no classes. But nonetheless, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So let's start off by the train wreck that happened in the Meadowlands. I think that's a good way to welcome you to the show here.
Absolutely.
Thursday Night Football, the only national game for the Patriots was almost a natural disaster. 24-3, the Patriots get blown out. And I didn't think the Patriots were going to win the game, but I didn't think it was going to be this ugly of a loss. 21 points, that's a lot.
Yeah, but when you take away what they're good at by just stacking the box and taking away that biggest offense for them, it kind of makes them one-dimensional. It's like, hey, can you beat me with your quarterback? And at that point, we can't.
100%. Yeah, that's a very good point because they are a good run stop, and that's our number one weapon there. I mean, Jacoby Brissett was just getting blown up that whole game, and that defense showed up for sure, big time. And sad to only see 3 points on there. And I'll talk about the last drive in a little bit longer.
He was sacked, to quote LeBron James, not once, not twice, 5 times.
Oh, yeah.
The fact this guy was able to walk out of MetLife Stadium is a miracle. 12 of 18 passing for 98 yards. And like you said, the Jets made it simple on defense. You take away someone from the secondary, load that box up, and it almost looked like what the Patriots did a few years ago with the Boogeyman game, kind of that cover zero blitz, where you have the extra guy that I think on 4, 5, or 6 plays, he was untouched getting to Jacoby Brissett, which, I mean, I understand the offensive line was going to be an issue, but the way it is right now, I don't think any quarterback can stand on his feet behind this offensive line.
Oh, no, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And, I mean, I'll bring it up now since we brought that up. I mean, you had Drake May come into the game, later in the game. He gets sacked twice. He runs right into one of them, in my opinion, but he gets sacked twice. It was good to see him get out there, but, I mean, these poor quarterbacks, no one stands a chance behind this line right now.
And Caden Wallace was the guy on the left side of the offensive line. Typically, he's on the right side. And, oh, yeah, he's a rookie. The Patriots right now are at the point where they're just kind of moving around large guys in the 70s, which typically that's a week 11, week 12, week 13 situation. We're only in week 3, and this is a little more concerning. We'll get to the blame pie in a second here, but I honestly don't know how much longer the Patriots can go out there with this type of offensive line situation.
I mean, I think you kind of have to just keep trying to do what you do best, is run the ball. If you can't run the ball, then these games are going to be this ugly every week. Because, I mean, it's so much of an expectation to think the defense can stop somebody over and over and over and over if you keep going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So after an ugly loss, what's the best thing to do as a sports fan? You eat your feelings. Let's talk about pie, the blame pie. Circular table here so we can maybe demonstrate. But who gets the biggest share of the blame pie for the Patriots in this just awful loss?
Coaching, in my eyes, and that's mainly the offensive line coach and Gerard Mayo himself, in my opinion. I mean, there's not much more Jacoby Brissett could have done with 2.4 seconds every time he hikes the ball to throw a ball, if he even got that, you know, and I'll definitely put a big blame on that offensive line coach. It's not, I forget his name right now, the old timer that retired a few years ago. It's obviously not him because this line has no idea.
Oh,
what
Dante
they're doing.
Scarnecchia.
Yeah, and I mean, number 70, Wallace, that you brought up, I know he's a rookie, but you had 2 plays back-to-back. When we got nice drives, I mean, Hooper caught a ball at, I think, brought it all the way to the 5-yard line, and that whole play got brought back because it was the second play in a row that he got a holding call on. You know, you can't have that. I get it, he's a rookie, but you cannot have that. And that dude better be doing extra laps this week.
You can't exactly fault Caden Wallace. I mean, like I said, the guy's a rookie. He played out of position. And I'll get to, this kind of goes into my blame pie, which I'll get to in a second here. But there are a lot of circumstances here that Wallace just flat out wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
And I hope this is just coming down to coaching and, you know, maybe you can fix 1 or 2 things. But I think there may be something bigger there in terms of the Patriots and how they scheme things. But blame pie, who gets the biggest slice in your mind?
Yeah, I would say I would go with the offense. The offense as a whole, when it comes to coaching and just offensive personnel that you have in there. I think and throughout the whole offseason, you kept hearing like they weren't really addressing about the offense, but they were addressing about the offense. And I think everybody knew this was going to be a huge problem throughout the whole season. Like you can't go into the season with this kind of O-line, with those kind of receivers, and expect results every single week. I think we got lucky against the Bengals, and that they're never prepared the first 2 weeks of the season.
It's
and
three
then
now.
we played very up to par with Seattle, but I think it's rearing to a head where our offense is just it's not even at the league like average. It's just so many years of just not addressing things on the offense, and it finally has caught up with us. So I think offensive personnel and offensive coaching, and then after that, honestly, I would put some blame on like the GM and stuff. Should have been going out addressing these issues. There was no reason for that.
I just updated my blame pie here. So for 40%, I'm giving it to Gerard Mayo and the coaches because they just flat out got out-coached in this game. Everything you look at here, on third down, the Patriots were 2 of 11. That's, 18%, something like that? I'm not very good at math, that's why I'm here. But total net yards, the Jets had 400 yards of total offense. The Patriots had 139. There's something there that I think is a little bigger than just the players being outperformed. This comes down to the coaches not getting the players prepared. And this kind of takes me to my 10% here, and I think part of it is just the circumstances. I mentioned this is the one time that the Patriots are on national television. It was a night game. It was in New York. It was also Aaron Rodgers' first game back in the Meadowlands since that Achilles injury. So that was a powder keg of emotions, and it almost did feel like a scheduled loss, but there's a difference between losing 23-20 in overtime and losing 24-3 in overtime. So half of the pie, I think, goes to the players, and like you said, Elliott Wolf, the Crafts, and the fact that they didn't put the best team on the field that they could have. You knew the offensive line was going to be an issue, so if City So is the biggest issue for you on your, the biggest name on your offensive line besides David Andrews, that's not a good thing here. And the fact that you're at the point now where you're having rookie right tackles move to the left side and allowing defenders to get to the quarterback unabated, that's a big issue there. And like I said, that's bigger than the coaching. That's more the GM. That's Elliott Wolf. And I think we're kind of in a place where we're in a world of hurt for the Patriots, potentially, because you still have 2 more games against the 49ers and the Dolphins coming up that we'll get to in a little bit. You mentioned Drake May coming into the game with 4:24 left to go in the fourth quarter. He did finish 4 of 8 passing, also had a couple of rushes. But could this be the eye-opening game for Gerard Mayo in saying, you know what, maybe it is time to flip that switch? Or can we still kick the can down the road and continue to bring him through the progression of a rookie quarterback?
It's not flip the switch because they didn't even give the dude the chance to throw it when he was at the 5-yard line. I know they needed 4th downs to march down the field, but Drake May did do well marching down the field. Like I said, I think there was at least 2 4th downs that needed to get there, but he ran out, he tried his throws, he got sacked twice, he was under pressure a lot. But, I mean, when he got hit, he was getting hit just as hard as Brissett, and Brissett was getting beat up that game. He looked hurt every time he got up. May at least got right back up. I mean, I'd like to see him in the near future, but not in the next few weeks. I mean, maybe we got to find a new lineman through a trade, give up our next high-round draft pick, because it's going to be a high-round draft pick.
Just get Boston College. That's it.
Yeah, seriously, though. What a game they had for the red bandana, too, with that not late comeback, but the late interception to seal the deal in the end zone. But definitely don't want to see him starting too soon, but I'd like to see him at some point. But as we have seen, this line is nothing special. And I mean, the coach obviously didn't trust him to stay out there and not get hurt with that line out there, because you're at the 5-yard line with your rookie quarterback on his first ever NFL drive, and all it took would have been 1 slant pass, and he could have got his first ever touchdown for when he comes back and says, hey, look, I did it versus a pretty good defense. Why can't I do it versus this team, I mean, I was upset with that, but that's coaching. Some people will enjoy every moment with the coach, and some people will be like me with the GMs for the Bruins, you know?
That's coming up a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But in your eyes, should Drake May be the starter in week 4, week 5, or somewhere down the road?
My sentiments about it are going to be, I think he should start late. I do think he's going to start this season. That's my first point. I don't think he should start anytime soon. I think you should give those young wide receivers time to develop. We don't have a Malik Neighbors. We don't have anybody like that. We have a very young room that needs time to develop and time to see other corners, the Jalen Ramseys, Sauce again. So I think you should give them time to develop. I think you should give this line time to hopefully find a little patch here and there to fix the problems. Then I think you start him. I think right now what you have, you didn't even feed Demario Douglas for the first 2 weeks, and then you gave him nine targets this game, and yeah, it produced, but was it garbage time production or what was it? So I just think you should give these receivers time to actually develop, see what we got, and then go from there, and maybe give him the last 3-4 weeks of the season. But yeah, don't send him out just to quarterback's confidence. That's one and one.
Look at Mac Jones.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Look at him on his first play in the Jacksonville.
So I'm still
Not
standing.
first, but
I'm still standing by my point. I think the perfect time to put Drake May in as the official starting quarterback of the New England Patriots is the Wembley trip when you go to London, because you're facing a Jacksonville squad that sucks just as bad as you do. Then you come back home and you face a New York Jets team, and I still think there could be that fluke win potential in there. But you face teams like a Tennessee, a Chicago, a Chargers. You're facing teams that are almost at the same tier as you. So once you get through this, gauntlet of really tough teams, the Jets the first time in the Meadowlands, San Francisco, Miami, I think then you can start looking at things and say, you know what, this offensive line is bad, but Jacksonville we're not terribly afraid of. Houston, a little bit concerned with. But I think you need to get through the first 5 weeks. Otherwise, this kid's going to come in here, Drake May, and I think maybe he could look like a Mac Jones if you're rushing him as much as some of these defensive lines are. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Patriots coming up in overtime. When we come back, we'll talk about the winter sports teams, including the Celtics and Brad's favorite team, the Boston Bruins, and his favorite guy, Don Sweeney.
I love you, Don.
76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Boston Bruins here, and they're preparing for the 24-25 season with about 7, 8, 9 goalies on the roster. But one of them, as of this recording, not Jeremy Swayman. Quite the press conference with John Sweeney, with the team opening things up in training camp. And he went after a podcast that you referenced on the last episode. What was it? Spittin' Chicklets?
Spittin' Chicklets, but he called it Spit on Yourself Podcast, or Spit Up on Yourself Podcast.
I wonder what he would call this podcast, or this show.
Well, he's going to be seeing it soon.
Probably not. Anyways, where is your concern level at for the Boston Bruins and Jeremy Swayman in this contract dispute situation? Because, like I said, as of this recording on September 25th, Jeremy Swayman is still a restricted free agent, and the season starts in, a couple weeks now?
It's October 8th, I think. We got the first game. We have Florida. They said, hey, Bruins fans, you get to watch the Florida Panthers raise their banner at game 1 for some reason.
Yeah, so overall, where's your concern level at whether or not this could actually get done?
So I always think contract talks are very funny because eventually you're going to pay them, I feel like.
Yep.
And if you don't, then you're not going to get the return on your asset that you think you're going to get. It never goes that way. So my sentiments about it are always, why not just pay them?
Right.
Just pay.
Oh, 100%.
You find, especially if they're a key cog in like a championship team or someone that's trying to go on a championship run. Prime example, this offseason, to get into the NFL a little bit, Brandon Ayuk sat out the whole thing.
Right.
And then look how he's looked the first 3 weeks. You don't get that continuity. You don't get that practice. You don't get these vital reps. And it starts becoming little whispers in the locker room, little distractions.
100%.
They're definitely not stuff you want to deal with when your aspirations are championships. So,
I mean, I'm worried, to be honest with you, because I'm having a brain fart. I forget who it was, but this happened with the Bruins in the last decade. The Bruins player in the last decade, and we didn't sign him till December 1st. So if we don't have him by October 25th, I don't think we're going to have him till December 1st, which is pretty upsetting because, I mean, Bussy's good and all that, but I'd like to see him as a backup, not the starter. And I mean, the goalie we got from Ottawa, you heard how I felt about him when we first talked about him. And I mean, big defensive core in front of him compared to what he had, but I'm not happy with that little trade there, besides the draft pick.
Yeah. So I know the Celtics have the shuttle that goes back and forth to Encore. This is like Don Sweeney doing a little gambling shuttle trip back and forth to Encore Casino, because right now he is playing poker with Jeremy Swayman. If things work out for Don Sweeney and the tandem of Bussy and Korpisalo ends up being okay through the first few games, maybe 9 or 10 before it really starts to become an issue, then you have a little bit of leverage. But if the Bruins come out on national TV in that opening game against Florida like you referenced, then that asking price for Jeremy Swayman maybe goes from 10-ish million a year, maybe to 12 or 13 million a year. And public perception is going to be against Don Sweeney. So really, Don Sweeney is playing high-stakes poker right now with the Jacobs money, and he could be all in on whether or not he wants to re-sign Jeremy Swayman, but it could very easily end up being bust for Don Sweeney in this contract dispute, because he could be really taken over barrel here by Jeremy Swayman if things really go sideways in the first month.
He's fumbled this whole thing 100%. You get rid of Linus first, and I mean, no one wanted to see him go to operations last year, but you could have brought him to operations again this year. I mean, you think you have everything figured out, but you don't, Don. And I mean, yeah, it's good for the first time in a while. He had a good free agent signing and even a great first-round draft pick, but you are fumbling the future of the team. As you said, the cogs. The goalie in hockey, as we all know, is the most important piece. And I mean, a lot of people will argue, if not top 3, Jeremy Swayman is a top 5 goalie in this league. And he obviously wants to play here. He went to college in Maine. He loves it. It reminds him of home because it snows and all that. I mean, he's from Alaska, so
go to Canada. It snows in Canada too.
He needs to stay on the American teams, all right? He's not bringing the cup home up there. Ever since I was born, the cup hasn't been brought to Canada. So as long as I'm alive, it's staying south of the border, all right?
Yeah, the Bruins did have a guy who played here for a long time, couldn't win, and brought the cup back.
Yeah, Mr. Ray Bork, Colorado Avalanche.
Could be revisiting that history. But could this contract situation eventually split the dressing room up? We heard Brad Marchand, kind of drop a little something in there a few weeks ago saying, we don't talk about contracts in the open. We kind of keep things behind the doors, and Sweeney said the same thing. But if this thing does go into the regular season, which it looks like it's going to, could this maybe play into, potential split among the locker room leaders?
I mean, it's going to be tough to break those 3 up when I'm McAvoy, Pasta, and Marchand, but I definitely can see that adding some fumes in the room. I'm not going to say everyone's going to be at each other's necks, but I mean, the players got to be pissed off at management right now because everyone knows that luckily the cap's going to keep going up the next few years. That's what Gary Bettman's saying, and I mean, you could give the dude 7.5 right now, and that you give him a 3-year contract, 7.5, 8, 8.5. Go from there. See what happens. If he plays out to be what we all think he's going to be, then you can talk bigger money when there's more money. I mean, Leon Draisaitl, he just screwed the whole trade market up for this year, getting $14 million. That means Connor McDavid next year, when he needs a contract, is going to get 16. And then who knows what Jeremy Swayman's going to be asking for after that.
25.
The cards are in Jeremy Swayman's hand right now. Don Sweeney lost it when he got rid of Linus Ullmark before locking him up. That's my opinion on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly how I would think about it. Is you don't reassure yourself with when you make that trade and trade your other goalie, and now you have no contract in place. So now you are just like, should I not? But you're going to. And if you don't lock them up, what are you portraying to your fan base at that point? So,
well, the fan base already knows that Sweeney's an idiot, the Jacobs are cheap, and the Bruins are a team that just wants to get to the conference finals to try and get a few more gates in the building.
Well, like I always say, we're ran by Bruins losers. I love Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, and I know Wayne Gretzky was involved, but you guys never brought it home, and you guys are halting our generation from bringing it home, in my opinion.
I think this could end up eventually being an issue with the locker room. You mentioned Ayuk earlier with him missing OTAs and training camp, holding out for a better contract that ultimately ended up being basically the same contract he was offered in the spring. But it's going to take time for Jeremy Swayman to get acclimated to reading how there's different rushes coming at you. You know, kind of like football. You can't replicate a rush in football. I don't think you can replicate a rush in hockey with 2 or 3, or maybe you go ahead and have 4 people coming at you. It's going to take a little bit of time. So if you end up having a rough stretch from the start, Swayman comes back in mid-November, then you're almost 20 games in, and who knows what the record is. If goaltending is the issue, you're losing these games, I think maybe some of these younger players could hold Swayman accountable and maybe could use him as part of the reason why the Bruins are having a hard time. And if you just agreed earlier, maybe we'd be a little bit better in the standings. So you have an issue with the Bruins being too cheap. The Celtics, we just throw cash away like it's no problem. There was an article in the New York Post that was apparently this exclusive one, though we kind of already knew it. Basically, Wyc Grousbeck's father is the one that forced Wyc to sell the team or start the process to put the Celtics up for sale, saying that the luxury tax was going to be an issue. It looks like they're going to be paying close to $80 million or so. But there was one significant sentence in that article, and that was the fact that the Celtics basically broke even with everything they won this past season. And that's because they don't have the arena like the Bruins have the TD Garden. All the concerts, all the Celtics games, the money from those tickets go to the Boston Bruins and not the Boston Celtics. So that was something significant that I read from the New York Post article. It sounds like this is going to be easily a 2 or 3 year process. We talked about this a few weeks ago. But is this something that could maybe hang over the team in the long term, be it the next 2 years or maybe even 3 years?
I didn't even know about the whole concert tickets going to the Boston Bruins.
They don't get all the money, some of it.
They get some, though.
Yeah.
Where's Swayman's contract? Taylor Swift was just in town, right? Come on.
Taylor Swift hasn't performed at the Garden since 2013.
I'm talking, help my wazoo, I don't know. But come on, I think it's going to be gone within 2-3 years. But I hope they do stay at the Garden. I hope there's not a new place just because of the history. I mean, when I go to Bruins games, I love looking up and seeing more banners for the Celtics and the Bruins, because that means, hey, boys, you got to catch up. But they're the best ever in basketball, championship-wise, and they've always been at the, what was it before, the TD Bank? That's what it was called before,
TD,
Bank North or something
TD
like
Bank,
that.
TD Bank North, Fleet Center, and the Garden.
Yeah, it's all, they've always played there. It's heritage, whatever happens, one, I don't want to see Jeff Bezos buy it, because I don't want to see Celtics Prime delivery out there. As cool as it would be to see Jaylen Brown deliver me a package, you got to go practice on the field. But yeah, definitely just want to see whatever happens in that deal. I want to see them stay at the Garden. I do.
You could have the Celtics logo at center court and then just have that prime smile underneath. But Jonathan, your thoughts on the Celtics being up for sale, and this article coming out that was basically Wyc's father that forced Wyc to put the team up for sale. A lot of people have had different, thoughts about this. What's yours?
Yeah, so I read about it and I saw it also had something to do with the high payroll. As I said before with the Bruins, Boston is title town. You expect championships, and you pay for championships most of the time. It's not always going through the draft and everything like that. And most of these pieces are like draft pieces, but you got to pay these guys eventually. And especially in the prime of their careers, you got to pay these guys. So I don't think this is something that'll loom over the team's head at all. I don't really think the concern is there that much about it. But when it comes to, it'll be sold. And who I think it'll be sold to, I have no idea. It's a big payroll, and rightfully so. We had a team that broke history last year, so it comes with the territory. You want to keep repeating. You want championships. You got to pay for it sometimes.
Does the check clear? If the check clears, the players don't care. They could care less if it's Bezos.
It's going to be Tom Brady, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck.
I still say if it's John Henry and the Fenway Sports Group.
I hope John Henry and the sports group just listen to Jonathan over here. Pay your players in their prime.
Time for the buzzer, and we'll talk about boxing and a return to the ring for Mike Tyson as he takes on Jake Paul, not Logan Paul, Jake Paul, in case I screw that up in the next couple minutes here. But this is taking place on November 15th on Netflix, and there's a lot of talk as to whether or not maybe this could be a big moment for boxing, because boxing hasn't had a big, noteworthy fight in decades. So Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, could this be the big moment boxing needs?
Gosh. These Jake Paul fights always get me because you just never know like the legitimacy of it, 100%. Right? You see him lose once, and then you see him go against, mind you, MMA fighters, but somebody that still knows combat sports, and just get these like vicious knockouts, and it just sometimes doesn't make sense to me. I honestly don't see. I don't know if it's legitimate or not. Right. So this is another instance of you're getting somebody that's way past their prime. Mind you, it's Mike Tyson. Mind you, does somebody still have skill? It's muscle memory. Most of that stuff for him, he's been doing it all of his life. Muscle memory. But like, who are we get? Like, we're not getting Mike Tyson, heavyweight champion of the world. We're getting an old man that knows how to fight against some young 20-year-old. I just don't see how it could be legitimate. Is it entertaining?
It's entertainment for sure.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I think that's the line where these fights of his go is, are we being entertained? I would say yeah. Is it an actual legitimate fight? Am I going to see Jake Paul in the Olympics or Jake Paul in an actual, like, against Canelo?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
It shouldn't happen.
See, I'm not the biggest fan of Jake Paul, but he's got talent when it comes to boxing. And I mean, I wish he would have done it a little bit more legitimately, because like you just said, most of his fights are versus people way past their prime. Mm-hmm. Even the MMA fighters, all that, they've been past their prime. And I mean, Mike Tyson, what's the point of you going after a 60-year-old man, no matter if he was one of the best ever to do it before?
Check.
You know, I know a check, but hopefully Mike gets more money out of that check. I mean, there were rumors that supposedly Mike can't knock him out, is what Jake's trying to tell everyone. Not that it's in the contract or anything, but that's what Jake's saying that Mike can't do, and I'd love to see that happen, just to be honest with you. Because like I said, Jake Paul, he's in it. He loves it. He's all for it. And I would have just liked to see someone try to go the legitimate path of becoming a sports, any sports, you know, boxing, hockey, football, anything.
You know what it kind of reminds me of sometimes? Of like WWE. Not saying like the moves are fake or anything like that. Like you see
no, it
in
does
WWE,
remind me of that too, man.
But the outcome is already predicted.
Yeah,
and I feel like a lot of the time that's what his fights are. Outcomes predicted. What happens in the in-between, you'll get a few things that probably shouldn't have happened, but for the most part, you're going to get to the outcome.
He knocked out that one dude, and he was just laying on the shoulder. Well,
drooling.
Jake Paul. Well, so one of them got knocked out, and he's just laying on the shoulders, and the dude's holding him up, like, wake up, you know?
Yep.
Could be glass-jawed Jake. You never know. Again, that's November 15th, taking place on Netflix. We have overtime coming up next. We'll talk about the Celtics Media Day, Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 chase, and our big Week 3 NFL stories. Back here on the show for overtime, John Luck, Brad McKinnon, Jonathan Rodriguez with you. And the big story from week 3 locally was the Patriots and how god-awful that performance was. But there were some noteworthy items from the NFL. And, we'll open up overtime here by talking about week 3 in the league because there were some interesting stories that came out of the league, and the fact that you have the Kansas City Chiefs winning another game in some people's minds because of the referees. You have Josh Allen going off on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Definitely a lot of noteworthy stories from week 3 in the NFL.
Yeah, so I would say what I saw mostly and what I can just grinds my gears this week with just being a fan of the NFL would be definitely Trevor Lawrence's play this week. I don't understand how you, as an owner, and this goes back to just paying your players, you see the product that you have, and you saw that he wasn't really producing his first 2 years. You bring in a coach, and then he only produces for half that season, wins a playoff game, but then last season becomes a dud in itself again, and then you pay him. So what are we paying these players off of? Projected what they're gonna do. I just, for him, it's so hard to just watch that product on TV and just think, if I'm a Jags fan, I'm like, wow, why did we pay that guy? You can't make simple throws. You're not running this offense like you should, and then ownership has had you for 3 or 4 years, and your record is very equivalent to the bottom tier quarterbacks.
Oh, bottom 10. 100%.
So what are we doing here? So I think that's one thing that I took away, and then the other thing is the Bengals with these starts every year. It doesn't make sense to me. They have all the talent in the world. Their defense is one of those bend but not break kind of defenses. They're not flashy. You don't have the flashy guy besides Trey Hendrickson, but the offense usually carried you, and they just start slow. And I don't know if you can get out of this 0-3 hole and make the playoffs, in my opinion.
It's going to be tough for any team to do that.
You need something outworldly to happen. So, yeah. And then Chiefs, I think the problem is, a lot of people have with the Chiefs is, you always see that sentiment about the refs. But, if you want to beat the Chiefs, make sure you don't leave it up to the refs' hands. Let's beat the Chiefs by 2 scores. You know the way to beat Patrick Mahomes. It's to run the ball and have a good defense. Keep him off the field. Because if you keep him off the field, he's not making those plays. You're not leaving it in the refs' hands.
Well, plus you had Justin Simmons of the Falcons, who has been basically Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite. Mm-hmm. He even had an interception Sunday night against Mahomes. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had Travis Kelce, and I think that was maybe one of the bigger stories from that game. What was it? 4 receptions for, was it 30 or 60 yards? It wasn't a lot of yards, but still, it almost feels like Travis Kelce was being phased out of that game on offense. And, this maybe goes into a bigger story on Travis Kelce because he hasn't really been that focal point on the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
Travis Kelce has almost been invisible, surprisingly, on that team throughout the first 3 weeks. And, it was an entertaining game. You hate to see whatever. I'll say, I agree with some of the people with the refs on that no call. When I saw it live, I said that's PI even before the guys did. But that happens. It happens to every team every week. If it's the Chiefs, it's the Chiefs. If it's the Patriots, it's the Patriots. And besides that, no one else cares. But it happens in every game, all right? Some of my favorite games of the week, though, that Cowboys-Baltimore game, that was really good. Not the Ravens. It was the Ravens and Cowboys that played. And then the 49ers and Rams. Mm-hmm. That was another good one, too, that I enjoyed.
How about the Carolina Panthers really coming out of nowhere against the Raiders?
Andy Dalton showing up.
Imagine being a moron that took the Vegas Raiders defense against Carolina. Oh, wait, that was me. Thank you very much. 7 projected points, ended up getting like 1.5 points. So thank you, Andy Dalton. Really appreciate that one.
Who Tampa Bay play?
Tampa Bay played the Denver Broncos, and that was another eye-opening game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels like week 3 was that opportunity for teams to either pull away or fall back. And we saw, a team that fell back, probably like the Cincinnati Bengals, like you said. And oddly enough, in that game, you pull the numbers there.
Sorry, keep talking.
There's numbers on here. We'll let Brad sift through here. But oddly enough, I think the other team to look at is the team that the Bengals lost to and the Commanders. Jaden Daniels has the potential to be the real thing. That true dual threat quarterback in a division like the NFC East, I think that could be a storyline as we go throughout the season to look at here. Can the Commanders pull ahead of maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, who apparently have their issues with their receivers going down, Brown, Smith, and only having Hurts and Barkley? Could Jaden Daniels maybe, bring the Commanders to the number 2 seed in the division
100%.
with Terry McLaurin, who actually has a quarterback that can complete passes to him?
Me and you both wanted him during the draft. We talked all about it right before the draft. And I completely forgot about that Broncos-Buccaneers game. I thought the Bucs were 3-0, but no, Knicks did have that crazy run, and Baker obviously didn't show up too well. The first 2 weeks, he was my biggest surprise of the football year so far, was Baker Mayfield, in my opinion. He was running in, breaking people's ankles, for crying out loud. But that was definitely a good one.
For me, a big story is the Miami Dolphins and the Tua situation, which we can talk about another day. But just the run they're having through quarterbacks. Skylar Thompson probably out for the next game. So now you go down to, who is it? Tyler Huntley, I think, is a third-string quarterback. You have
Tim Boyle.
Yep. I mean, the names are getting to the point here where you have to start looking at LinkedIn or Indeed to see who some of these quarterbacks are. So that's just some of the stories from week 3. I'm going to go through here to see what notes I have on the next story. There we go. Now it's back in order.
Whoops.
Thank you very much. Celtics Media Day took place on the 24th of September, and it's safe to say that the Jays have a little bit of motivation going into the season after the Olympic situation and Steve Kerr. Of course, Jaylen Brown didn't get named to the team. Derek White actually got named over Jaylen Brown as a replacement. Jason Tatum didn't play a couple games against Serbia, but Jason Tatum, it sounds like he maybe is using the Olympic experience as a little bit of motivation. So let's break down the play-by-play here, if you will, between reporter and Tatum on the Olympic experience. The reporter asked, "I'm curious what you learned from your experience at the Olympics this summer." Tatum, looking very uncomfortable, saying, "That's a broad question. You want to be more specific?" So the reporter asks if it's something that he's going to draw motivation from. Then Tatum says, kind of frustrated, "Want to address that I didn't play those games? That's what you mean?" So then the reporter says, "Yep." Tatum replies, "Motivation? I guess you could say that. And if you want to simplify it, in real time, it was tough. But Joe is probably the happiest person in the world that I didn't win Finals MVP and that I didn't play in 2 of the games at the Olympics. That was odd, but Joe makes sense like that. Did I need any extra motivation coming into the season? No, I'm not going to give anybody in particular credit that they're motivating me to come into the season. It was a unique circumstance, something that I haven't experienced before in my playing career, but I'm a believer that everything happens for a reason." For someone that, made it sound like this wasn't motivation, the Olympic experience, the Celtics are going to beat the Warriors by 75 in the Garden in November.
Steve Kerr thought that last game was bad. Yeah.
And he will be booed.
Oh, yeah. Heavy.
As soon as he enters,
Heavy.
he will be booed.
We talked about it
swears
while it was happening, and how we said maybe it was an all right call with how Serbia was, how they played and all that. They were our toughest team, I feel like. The French game obviously was tough in the finals, but Serbia always had it close with us. And yeah, that's definitely going to be a little fuel under him, but is he going to admit that? Probably not. You don't want to let Steve Kerr know, hey, you mentally got to me a little bit. Jaylen Brown doesn't even want to say, hey, why didn't you pick me? I was the Finals MVP, and I was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP too, But the Celtics are going to have a good run this year, and I don't think it will be on the fact that there's a little simmering fire under Jason Tatum over the Olympics that he won a gold in. It's not like he won a bronze or no medal at all. He won gold, and yeah, there were other people there, and Steph Curry carried some games and all, well, some quarters and all that.
He won the gold medal.
Yeah, that's 100%. But you get what I'm saying. It's not going to affect him that much. It really isn't. There will be a little fire, but you could blow it down if you wanted to, any day.
Motivation?
Yeah, I think it's going to put him in MVP talk this season for sure. I think the Jaylen Brown situation with not getting picked, I think that was a little bit more to do with like politics of of things behind the scenes, people. But with Jason Tatum, yep. Got it. Yeah. With Jason Tatum, though, I do think that it does add motivation, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. You're not going to admit it to the person that is, like, not putting you down, but giving you that motivation. But is it internally motivation for him? Absolutely. You want to go out there and prove, hey, I was all season a top 5 player in the NBA, top 10 maybe, and I got no playing time those 2 games. Oh, I'm going to show you who's top 5 now.
There's one interesting thing that came out of Media Day, too. It was Al Horford saying that Jason Tatum was in the training facility, a few weeks ago, and the time he started, 6 a.m. When did LeBron start, training and practicing, going to the gym in Paris? 7 a.m. If Jason Tatum is taking the LeBron James mindset, I can't wait to see what happens this season, especially if Jaylen Brown is playing as physical as he played in the playoffs this past postseason. You couple those 2 things together, holy crap, this is going to be a fun season for the Boston Celtics. Let's talk about baseball now, why don't we? Shohei Ohtani, a 50 home run, 50 stolen base player, and that was coming off of a 6-for-6 performance in Miami where he got that 50th home run and 10 RBIs. But for some reason, it feels like maybe it's not getting the attention it deserves. A big moment like that, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, first player to do that, and someone like Shohei Ohtani that's also a pitcher, did this maybe get the media attention it deserved?
No. I might have seen it online for maybe a day. For a feat that big, I don't think it's also just competing with so much. You got all the sports right now. Mm-hmm. You have you're in the prime of football. You got WNBA playoffs. You got NBA about to come back, and everybody getting ready for that, and all these media days. It's there. It's somewhere in the top, but it's so buried under so many other sports happening right now, and it's also the end of baseball season when a lot of fans are not particularly paying attention anymore, and you're just waiting for the postseason. So it unfortunately didn't get the media coverage that it definitely did deserve because of the player that he is and the what he demands to the sport. But I mean, it's one of those situations. It happened at a bad time.
And you actually watched a baseball game.
Yeah, surprisingly, as I always say, baseball, big fair weather fan, but that was a hell of a game. It really was. I mean, like you said, 10 RBIs. He's hitting the ball left and right. Supposedly the Marlins coach even said they were thinking about walking him, but they said they didn't want to prevent him from hitting any records or anything. And I mean, that's pretty cool for a team to say, hey, let this dude hit, let it hit. It's a regular season game. If he can break some records on us, he broke the record on us, whoop-de-doo. And I mean, that was just a great game. It was awesome. 10 RBIs. What was it, 17-4 the final or something like that?
It was a blowout, but for Marlins purposes, it's just another day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but still, I mean.
For the White Sox, that's just your average meme.
Yeah. It's like my favorite hockey one whenever there's a high score game. It's the old school, with the dog there, I can't remember, when we were kids. It's them slapping pucks and then pushing a bunch in with shovels and all that. And you get a goal, he shoots, he scores, he shoots, he scores.
It's like the Oprah meme, or the GIF, you get a goal,
you get a car. Yeah.
This didn't get the attention it deserved, I don't think. And
Definitely
like you said, it's part of it is because of when it happened. The middle of college football season, NFL, you have everything kind of converging. But I also think this is maybe something about baseball and how much respect it gets in the sports scene. Now, MLB Network did do a couple hours after this actually happened. But again, MLB did a couple hours on an MLB story, which makes sense. But you go back to the late 90s, and you had that home run chase with McGuire and Sosa. I mean, every at-bat for those two, it didn't matter what channel you were watching, you were tuned into that. Barry Bonds, when he was chasing Hank Aaron's all-time home run record, every channel was on that. Mm-hmm. Shohei Ohtani goes for 50-50. I mean, yes, it is just 50 home runs compared to what Aaron Judge did a couple years ago, hitting 62. But this, I think, deserved a lot more attention than what it actually got. I mean, it's one thing to be a 40-40 player, 30-30, but, I mean, 50-50
is a lot.
The attention, the speed it takes, and especially for a guy that also pitches. Granted, he didn't pitch this year, but still, I mean, this guy is a legitimate baseball unicorn, and in my eyes, just from media coverage, he didn't get anywhere near the coverage he should have got.
That gambling issue got more media coverage than
Absolutely.
this, which is sad.
Yeah.
It is 100%.
I forgot about it until you just brought it up 5 seconds
But
ago.
that was a few weeks of you
Yeah.
seeing it on the
Every
Sports
day,
Center and
every
all
day.
that. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, 100%. And now this dude's out here doing 50-50, and you hear it for, like you said, a day or two at most.
Yep.
Let's talk about Boston College, why don't we? They had the red bandana game, beating Michigan State 23-19. The Heights were jam-packed, and they stormed the field after the game. But the third win for Boston College this season, it looks like everything's back on track as they get set for a game against Western Kentucky coming up this weekend when we're recording this. Brad, you watched the game. I was unfortunately working during it, but it just seemed like an emotion-packed night, both on the field and off the field, given what the red bandana game means for Boston College and in memory as well.
That's an awesome tradition that they keep going for Wellis. And I might have just said his name wrong, but number 19 there. The game was great. It was, whatever the final score was,
23-19.
BC definitely should have got one more touchdown. There was a drive where they stalled out on the 1-yard line on 4th and goal, or it was maybe the 2, but they had it close. It was a close game for sure. It was a nail-biter at the end, and then they got the game-winning interception with, I think, 38 seconds left. If it wasn't in the end zone, it was in the red zone. I can't remember if it was actually in the end zone or not. I think it was, but that's just great for Bill O'Brien's first year as a coach, for them to win the red bandana game after last year. I think it was FSU they lost to in the red bandana game, and whoever they played, they shot themselves in the foot with penalties that whole game last year, and that's probably BC's most important game to win every year, just for the students, the tradition, for the families. I mean, that fire department from New York comes out every year and all that, and it's just good to see too, Boston in general saying, "Hey, New York, we don't forget about you," you know.
Just 3 penalties on both sides in the game there, and they only came out to 25 yards each. But turnover battle, that was really the telltale sign there. Game ending with the interception, but 4 turnovers for Michigan State compared to Boston College's 1. And I think this is significant just in the grander sports realm because the Patriots are awful. You know, this is kind of BC's area now. You know, for the next couple
Get back
weeks
on the radar.
Right. Well,
More TV coverage, all that.
for the next couple weeks, while the Bruins and Celtics are starting to ramp up their seasons, you know, the Red Sox are getting set to finish things up. The Patriots are a nightmare. But for the next few weeks, the Boston College can really make things interesting as far as their place in the Boston sports scene. Thomas Castellanos was 10 of 15 passing, 140 yards, and a touchdown. Trayshawn Ward, 14 carries for 102 yards and 1 touchdown as well. 12 teams are in the college football playoff. Are we ready to maybe put BC in that conversation yet? Or are we a little too quick to the draw?
Yeah, a little quick to the draw. I think there's still teams that they need to beat. The Clemsons,
100%.
Yeah, I think anybody these days is beating Florida State. So that's not at the time. I think it was something, but then when you see what Florida State's become, it is what it is. It's funny enough. I was watching this podcast about and Bill O'Brien was on it, and he was saying how hard these kids work, even in the era of NILs, and kind of not expecting them to work as hard. And he said these kids work hard every single day, and I think he's getting the most out of them. And I don't think they're a college playoff team, but I think they're showing the college landscape what they're capable of.
When we're recording this episode, they are in the top 2, in the ACC, so they would qualify for the ACC championship game. But still, a lot of football left to play, and a lot of good teams in the ACC as well, especially as you get to the middle of the pack with your UNCs, your Pittsburghs, your SMUs, because don't forget the conference also expanded, so now it's 17 teams there. But yeah, when you talk about college football playoff, you're talking about a lot of Big Ten teams that are going to be in there, a lot of SEC teams that are going to be in there. So there's easily 6 to 8 teams, and then there's only another 4 left, and you're going to have, like a Coastal Carolina type of Cinderella team. There's your 10. So I think it's difficult to talk about college football playoff appearance this year, but if you can get into, one of these notable bowl games, like a Gator Bowl or something like that, these well-known bowl games that get the national attention, I think that could help Bill O'Brien recruit for next year, seeing what just his coaching mindset can do for this team, because he has made a huge difference, I think, for the Eagles in terms of how they approach each game and how he approaches each practice.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I see a little bit of potential, but I hardly doubt that we'll make it in the playoffs this year. It would be nice to see that, obviously, but I don't think that's going to happen. You did just bring up the Red Sox wrapping up their season. I just want to show you. That's why I pulled out my phone. We hit 80. We hit our over, all right? You said under. Me and Dom said over, so just want to let you know there's one final result right there from my predictions on the first show, all right?
Do you want me to get the big chain I had for the Celtics when they won an actual championship? We'll take a quick break. We're going to choose some games coming up, including the Patriots-Niners, which that's an interesting spread. We'll have that after the break.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Time to pick the Week 4 matchups. We have the Broncos and the Jets. The Jets entering as 7-point favorites. And given how the Broncos played against the Bucs, that's actually a surprising number.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is going to go back-to-back. And say by 10.
You want to go for the double check? Not by 14.
Discount double
only
check.
By 10.
I'm going to say revenge game for Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers having his boys back, and I'm going to say Jets cover.
I'm going to take the Jets by 2 touchdowns.
Discount double check.
Double check. Miami and Tennessee. This is a Monday night game, but this has the possibility of being one of the worst played football games in the history of the NFL. Because God knows who's starting for the Dolphins. We know Will Levis is starting for the Titans, but somehow the Titans are coming into this game as 1-point favorites. I don't know how, don't know why, but
pick 'em.
It's there.
This is a disgusting game to pick,
Yeah,
honestly.
it is, especially Monday nighter. Oof.
I will pick Miami to cover,
Yeah.
but I'm not sold on either side. I don't think Will Levis is bad. I think he's just gotten the bad end of the stick of just playing not.
He's a meme
Yeah,
now, the
yeah,
poor
yeah.
guy.
Unfortunately.
3 weeks in a row.
But yeah, I'm gonna go Miami. This is wild.
I'll probably take Miami too, because no matter what, Tennessee doesn't have a Derrick Henry anymore. They don't really have major threats on the line and wide receivers either. And I mean, Miami, at least you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, those 2 running backs.
Well, I think Mostert's actually injured or playing injured, but he's dinged up.
And then you
sure.
have Achan or whatever his name is, who's really good too.
Huntley should be starting as well.
Who?
Huntley,
Yeah,
Tyler Huntley.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, Miami should win that game. And we're going to see Will Levis is going to do something silly again, like he has every week this year.
You know what I found out this morning?
Feel bad for him.
From when we're recording this? Will Levis actually does mayonnaise commercials. So it would be a miracle if he wins. So I'm going to take Miami.
Yeah.
Miracle whip. Seattle, Detroit. I'll start off with this one. Detroit coming in as 4-point favorites. And I'll take the Lions here. It's a home game. Seattle, I'm not really convinced on them yet. I'm getting there. Charbonnet is a very talented running back, plus the wide receiving core is just ridiculous. But I still think the Lions, they're playing at home. It's a Sunday night game. I think Dan Campbell is just going to find a way to get them through the finish line and win by more than 4.
So I'm with you on the Lions for sure. And Seattle, like you said, they're figuring it out. They do have a good team. I mean, we didn't get to talk about the Pat-Seattle game because we missed a week, but Gonzalez on DK, the few plays that he did well. He did well. I'll bring that up real quick. Yeah, 54-yard touchdown. But Seattle definitely has potential, but I do still think Detroit will be one of the 2 teams in the NFC that bring it to the championship, and the other one being the 49ers, if not Eagles. Those are my 3 teams at most on that west side.
Just pick 2 of the 3. Seattle, Detroit, who you got?
So I have Detroit winning, mostly because they can stop the run. And I think if you're going to trust Geno in a throwing situation, he does have weapons, but will he make a mistake? And I think he'll make a mistake before Goff makes a mistake. And I think at the end of the day, Detroit can run the ball probably the best we've seen out of all the teams in the NFL. So if you can just run the ball like that, you have everything that wins. But I do see Seattle covering.
Montgomery had nearly 25 carries, I think, against the Cardinals. Kansas City and the Chargers. Kansas City coming in as 8-point favorites. I think they're one of the couple undefeated teams left in the league.
It's Travis Kelce's breakout week. He'll have a big game. Like I said before, he's been invisible, and it's sad. I mean, people are even discussing in fantasy leagues getting rid of the tight end and making it a flex because all these big names are in the bottom 20, you know. But I do think Kansas City wins, and only because Travis Kelce finally shows up, because he really hasn't.
Yeah, so no Justin Herbert, or if we do have a Justin Herbert, it's going to be less than 100%. No Derwin James as well. So that's the Travis Kelce guy that is designated for Travis Kelce. I do have Kansas City winning because of all these aspects that, unfortunately, the Chargers have to deal with at the moment. So
I was trying to come up with a Taylor Swift pun, but I couldn't. So I'll just take Kansas City and say they're going to win
got
by
bad
more than
blood.
8.
All right.
Yep. Or, there could be a blank space in your fantasy lineup. Fill that with
Travis Kelce.
Yep.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. That's Travis Kelce on your lineup, all right?
Really can't wait to see that on social media. New England, San Francisco rounding things out. Patriots coming into this game as 10-point underdogs. I think the Patriots suck. I don't think they're that bad. Deebo Samuel's hurt. George Kittle's hurt. Christian McCaffrey, he's seeing doctors about his Achilles. Brock Purdy's also dinged up a little bit. I think the Niners will win, but I don't think it's going to be by 10 points. So I think it's going to be an ugly game that only us in the Bay Area are privileged to see. But I'm going to take the Niners to win, but not by 10.
Yeah, I have New England covering. San Francisco can't stop the run, and that's where we shine. So I'm going to assume that we can get some points solely based off that. And then we saw a side of Brock Purdy that I'm not saying I love Brock Purdy. I think he's a great quarterback, and what he's done for San Francisco is great. We've seen him be susceptible. We've seen him get got by defenses, and I think our defense is a top 5 to 10 unit, and I think we can cause some damage. So I'm getting New England to cover.
I'll be devil's advocate, as Don would say, because I agree with you plenty, and I say this a bunch on our defense. That's one thing I didn't worry about the past 2 years. I mean, yeah, it's we lost Judon, blah blah blah, but I do think it's a top 10, if not top 5 defense when they all are playing how they should be. And I mean, they are pretty banged up, so I mean, I'll give this one to New England. I'll be the devil's advocate and say the Pats are going to pull this one out somehow. And like you just said, it's only going to be us in the Bay Area watching this game.
If you're going to be Tom, we need to get you the suit jacket.
Next week, guys, I'll wear one. I had to pull out the Gaudreau today, but we'll do the suit really next week, all right?
Thanks for coming on and helping us, and hopefully we get to have you back on some point here.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on.
And
One time.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time here on The Sidelines.